All right, good morning. Hopefully, everybody can hear me today. It's been a while since I've made a video. As many of you know, I spent the last month suffering through a cold, bronchitis, laryngitis, and just trying to get over this. I don't know what kind of cold it is. So I'll do a few introductions real quick. My name is Jay. I am the owner of Section8Consulting.com, and today I am doing okay. So a few topics to cover is we're going to be collaborating with a law firm, Stark law firm, a lot like the movie when you have Marvel movie when they have Stark as the robot. Anyways, so Stark law firm out of New York, we'll be working with them through podcasts and through educational services for the Russian and also Ukrainian communities. Now, I don't want to convolute this. I have no view or opinion of what's going on between Ukraine and Russia. These folks clearly here in the U.S. live here; they're nationals legally, and so we're going to be supporting both communities as well as many others. Because one thing that I see is whether the community is Russian, Ukrainian, um, Korean, Chinese, Indonesian, we've got to be able to reach other people than just black, white, and brown folks. Okay, we need to be able to talk to everybody. This nation is made of many people. I'm the least political person I know, so I don't consider politics and religion into this or wars. I consider the gravity of a human and what they need, especially when they're suffering from different situations of disability and so on. Okay, so the primary audience for that Stark law firm through the podcast will be the Russian and Ukrainian, or those that speak those languages, and of course English, because I speak English, right? So we're going to be working there. We're also going to be working with another law firm out of San Francisco to address some of the Asian community. Now we know our good Asians are smart people, but even they need help, and so we're hoping to address the Asian and Korean, and Japanese, and all the other groups, and see if we're able to help them through, again, podcasts. Now, one thing we're going to be covering as well as the studio. Now, this is pretty ratty, right? But look, I'm not here to sell lipstick and toasters and drills. I'm here to consult with you guys as a professional. I don't put a lot of time and effort into making videos pretty. However, we'll be moving to a studio, so you won't see this in my rolls of duct tape. So it's going to look much nicer by the end of October as we do that. Again, I'm not here to be the handyman of YouTube. People here to listen to what I have to say. Oh, and by the way, we have our receptionist there. She's a lazy little old thing that's used to be little mama. She's a big girl now. She's asleep. And if you see all those spots on the chair, they have ravished my chair. So in our new studio, we'll have the same chair, but you'll see what it looked like 5 years ago without thousands of claw holes and marks on it. Many of these kittens that have grown up that I have rescued from bad homes and other things that come to live with me, and a lot of them were raised in this chair in many ways, so they consider it a comfort spot. That's why I've had people comment about my chair. It looks like shit, and that's okay. It's not about my chair. It's about advice, right? Another thing I'm going to cover this morning is going to be health. Again, I want to let everybody know I'm doing okay. I'm still kind of recovering. I don't know what the hell I had, but it certainly was not anything that I can remember through the 70s and 80s, 90s, and so on. So many of you know I was pretty sick, and I've been struggling for almost 6 weeks now, it seems like. But I'm doing better. I want to talk about behavior because every holidays bring out the best, they bring out the worst. And technically, we're rolling into the holidays, right? It's already October. Today, I posted a photo of some of my Halloween decorations for the channel. And, you know, we could talk about the behavior of clients, casework, and consulting today because I don't want last year to be a repeat of this year. I understand the gravity and intensity that people want vouchers and advice. However, I cannot work 24 hours a day. I'm not going to permit people to text me at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I ask people to respectfully follow our business hours. I know many people that have paid for casework are paid a decent amount of money. And a lot of people ask for appointments after they receive casework. Thing is, we have business hours for a reason, and that's so you can call as you need to. I may not be able to answer the phone instantly. That's the reality of business. I'm one man with two office managers, and so we have to be reasonable but respectful in that nature. Now, another thing I want to talk about is though I deal with many people that have extraordinary disabilities, including autism, sometimes even Down syndrome. These are very functional people. Clearly, they use a credit card. They can book an appointment. Also deal with people with schizophrenia, bipolar, and a wild number of things. And I understand that there's less control for those folks when they have a bad day. But do not book me, then attempt to abuse me, okay? I will give lots of latitude for those that suffer from mental health issues, but what I cannot do is deal with paranoia, okay? If you're having a moment, please put the phone down. Call when you're doing your best, not your worst. Okay, I'm not a very good psychiatrist. I'm a very good consultant, but I'm not a very good psychiatrist. And though I empathize deeply with all of my clients, I'm not here. I cannot solve medical crisis of the mind. So I want to talk about another type of person that we deal with infrequently every month, and I have to terminate cases. And I wrote some short notes, and most of you received this email. It's about case termination. And so our office will terminate high maintenance or neurotic clients that feel the need to challenge or question every part of casework or dictate how or when we do our job. This is not a nail salon. You don't get the option to tell me, oh, I paid such a certain amount of money and I expect goal line service. I don't do frequent flyer miles. There is no VIP uh, lounge for you. I deliver services as required under federal rules. I do it most graciously, but some people have this imagination that they're going to be sipping champagne in the middle of Macy's kind of deal, and they're going to march me around, and it won't happen. I'll simply terminate the case over that. Okay, so I'm not trying to be unreasonable, but if you're having flights of fancy, then casework's not going to be appropriate. It's time to seek out some medical help, maybe go inpatient therapy, and then come back to earth when you're back to reality. And because the thing about it is, I can't save you if you're drowning and you're about to be homeless, and you're going to catch an attitude with me while we're doing casework. I cannot help you that way. Yeah, I'm not going to drown with you. I'll do everything in my power, and I'll give second and third chances, but I'm just not going to deal with attitudes. Okay, I'm human too. I have buttons you can push. Trust me, if you have found that magic button, though I hide it well, they've managed to push it. So there's no reason to do that. I'm here to help you. Okay. Another thing I want to cover. We've changed our business hours again to the afternoon. I've tried it every way. I've tried morning appointments. People hate it because if you're in California, the West Coast, it's rather miserable, right? Nobody wants to get up and have an appointment at 4 in the morning. And I've switched to nights, I've switched to weekends. For now, we're going to do it in the nights to better help those of you that have doctor's appointments and life to live. So right now, for most people, if you're on the East Coast, it'll be around 5 o'clock in the afternoon type appointments, and if you're on the West Coast, it'd be about 3 o'clock. That's the best I can do to service it because I'm working across three different time zones across the U.S. So beyond that, again, we'll have the new studio, and we're going to be doing a lot of different collaborations with different companies. We're also working with social workers and caseworkers to better train them. They're excellent in their aptitude to get resources for clients, but they often have zero training in regards to Section 8. You would think that an attorney would be an expert in federal code, but unfortunately, many are not. And so I get hammered all the time by law firms that simply don't have the time to sit there and unwind what Section 8 is concerning federal rules. And so flying out to deal with court cases where they need testimony as an expert or situations where I'm training attorneys to better understand their client's need. Because many times you have family attorneys that are dealing with an estate or a will, and then the client could be potentially homeless, and we're trying to solve those problems. So, areas of practice for attorney don't seem to cover a lot of Section 8. So I've been doing a lot of training regarding that. And I absolutely refuse to make these little sell people videos. That's the most ridiculous idea I've ever heard. I'm not going to do that. That's almost the most scammy thing I've ever seen. Let me sell you some program. I'm just not going to do that. So our videos have always been free. They've always had the intent to educate, to help people get through. And many clients have weaponized more than 1,000 videos that we've made to get out there and get housing. Now, I realize not everybody has the time for this. Casework is intensive. So let's talk about casework real quick and what that is to my company and to our clients. We service easily 1,000 clients a year. Now, not all of them are going to be casework, but casework is where we're working with you. We're working with the housing authority. We're working in other situations with landlords when there's problems or violations of federal rules or statutes. But we're mainly compelling housing authorities in other areas of the country to issue vouchers and then begin a portability process. Many of you have this rudimentary understanding of portability. You think you've got to live, let's say you live in Florida and your housing authority's closed. You've got no chance. You're about to be out on the street in 30 days and your housing authority's closed. You have no options, right? Because you don't know anything else. You haven't, and of course, housing authorities don't do a great job of education either. They barely answer the phone, much less answer questions. So you living in Florida, your housing authorities closed. It would be our office job to look at all 2,800 housing authorities across America. You think, well, hell, I'm not going to. If you get a voucher in Alaska, Jay, for me, I'm not going to move out there. Nobody's suggesting you need to do that. In many cases, there are many reasons in which special use can issue or force or compel a housing authority to grant portability, which means you win it on a short list in a Midwest state, and then we port it back to the desired area in the state of Florida. That could work for any state. Now, that's the short answer. There's a lot of complexity to that, and it's also powered by an attorney. So, though it sounds good in practice for most of you would not have the necessary skills or training to be able to actually get through that. And a lot of that, in addition to the portability aspect in special rules, would be accommodations and understanding federal policies, including the Department of Justice or DOJ directives on how to implement accommodations appropriately to compel or force the housing authority to do something they absolutely despise. And that is give you a voucher in a completely different state and then have you move it back and completely skip the line in a different state where it's crazy, like New York. It's my ability to do that that distinguishes me from virtually every other consultant on the planet. And after doing this for over 20 years, I easily arrived at the conclusion more than a decade ago, there is nobody better than me. There's not even a close second. I would encourage anybody to roll through YouTube, Google, Yahoo, and MSN, find anybody that's close second to me that doesn't have either a stellar relationship or they've destroyed their company from negative reviews. I haven't any. I've never even been indicted for anything. I encourage my clients to call the DOJ and FBI if you want to see about liens, holds, judgments. But does that mean that I'm selling something that's fictional, a rainbow, or a unicorn? No. There is a failure rate. There's a 7 to 8% failure rate. Despite my good judgment and even reviewing client cases, there are cases that never resolve. So I do not, your odds are better than a scratch off. When you go to the gas station, you purchase a scratch off, that you tell them, hey, I'm going to spend $1, but I better damn well get a winner. If I don't get a winner, then I'm going to want a refund. The world doesn't work that way. So don't book casework unless you're willing to gamble, okay? Statistical data is what I give clients. We work through the case. Now, we're not going to get to the end and give a refund, period. Nobody in my office is going to work for free and play a game of gambling. It's just not going to happen. So we do our best to screen clients for good cases. I turned down lots of obnoxious cases where we have a 19-year-old just got out of high school that has no inspiration and an attitude. They believe they're entitled to everything. They've won a food stamp card. Now they're on a mission to go out and get as much free shit they can get. And they call my own. I'll turn them away. I don't service clowns. If you're suffering from clownery, please don't book us. I'll just refund your money and get rid of you. The service to provide and the time that I'm using to help clients are for people that are seniors, that are disabled, or families that have serious challenges. This is not for the average Joe. I'm not going to teach you how to hide all your assets. Oh, I've got $1 million and I got a $500,000 house. I'd like to scam the U.S. government and I'd like to weaponize your service to do that. No, I'll just get rid of you and then I'll call the Department of Justice or the appropriate federal agency and I'll report your ass. Okay? I'm not going to help anybody defraud. This is here to help real people. This is the problem. We've got people that are attempting, if they haven't already dug themselves to the very bottom, they pull a teaspoon out the back of their pocket and see if they can dig a little further to hell. They want to scam a little bit more. I'm not going to help people do that, period. We're not going to engage in fraud. So that's this morning's lecture. To be honest with you guys, I'm really excited about this studio because I feel like I'm making videos inside of a bathroom almost. My office is not the biggest place. It's a tight fit. And nobody wants to see a whole blanket hung, but how else can I do this? I can either be a good consultant or we can sit here and decorate and make curated videos. Curated videos do not help people get housing. Just like when I tell clients, they always start with, I've got a long story. Well, your long story isn't going to help me get you a voucher. Allowing me the time to ask you the questions that I need for the necessary points are going to determine the outcome of whether or not you'll likely get a voucher. Not whether or not you've got a strong empathy or sympathy story. None of that stuff matters in the world of Section 8. We're dealing with a convoluted system that is broken and has not been fixed. It's unfavorable, and then it becomes even more challenging dealing with privately owned public housing authorities with angry, pissed off people. If you think the people at Walmart that treat you like trash are bad, try calling your local housing authority. These people don't want to even answer the phone, open the door. They don't want to answer any questions. And the minute you annoy them, they will find any which way to victimize you. Now you're already a victim to start with. You're desperate and you're having to lean on people that you may or may not even trust. And then you're further victimized by these people. And I am the barrier between that. I further weaponize it by federal code, statute, policy, procedure, and then even use attorneys. Since I have pretty much a Rolodex of attorneys across the country that I've worked with in one way or another, I can assure you there's nobody better apprised of any law. Does that make me an attorney? No, but it makes me understand the principles of the law to look for the parts where there are weaknesses there, and these are called loopholes. Just like Congress, when them good old boys smoked cigars and drank whiskey up there in Congress and the Senate, and they design laws to help them and their constituents legally not pay taxes and all this other bullshit they do up there. My job's a lot like that, but in a different way. I'm not servicing the rich. I'm servicing the poor and the desperate. And so if Congress did a bad job writing policy, then it's my job to exploit the hell out of it legally. And that's what I do. That's what a good mind would do. You look for ways to match your client's preferences to the need or desire of the housing authority so that they have no way to deny their ability to get a voucher, coupled with the ability to look at a wide range of cities and housing authorities that may have a short waiting list, matching those preferences up, initiating portability under federal rules, and then compelling them essentially through accommodations, because God knows a housing authority cannot violate. They can attempt to, but they cannot deny accommodation. That would have violated 2008 Disability Act. And so putting all those things together and then testing that theory in the beginning, be glad you weren't a client of mine 20 years ago because you'd have been a test dummy. There were many clients that were experimental. They tried me, I charged them nothing, and then we rolled many theories. And then over time, you start to see where those weaknesses are with housing authorities and employees. I got so good at some points that I would actually send an army of people to certain housing authorities because I knew their employees were lazy. I knew that I could easily get vouchers, and I did it legally without cheating, lying, or deception because they were lazy, And so it's an imperfect system, and it's those imperfections that make this go so well. So, but let's go back to failure rates, what we call commonly in retail loss ratio. Some cases fail. I mean, I have clients that are clearly cannot abstain from alcohol. They can't abstain from drugs. some people that are prostitutes, drug dealers, and all kinds of things. I service everybody if there is a will or intent to utilize the program and you exit, and your intention is to exit. I help you despite who you are. I think that's a lot of what Jesus did, isn't it? I'm not him, but I'm just suggesting that that's the moral here. That I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to help you find your way out before it gets worse, if I can. And then if we had to look at mismanagement on my part, my inability or ineffectual ability to understand your case and it fail and not get a voucher is very low, less than 1%. And then, of course, I have my delusional soccer mom and dads that have always had the good life. Now they've arrived in a situation where they have to consider a voucher, but yet they just think magically the voucher is going to arrive in the mailbox and that I can somehow do the entire case without them ever being involved. They don't need to sign anything. They never to produce an ID. That's the kind of crazy I deal with at least twice a month. And then I have to terminate the case. And then once they've gotten their free roll of socks and a yoga mat, and they spend a little bit of time, and I call it doing time at the shelter, then they come back. They start to float out of the stratosphere. They come back and they understand in the real world, it takes cooperation, okay? Because I'm not going to do limited power of attorney and durable power of attorney over clients in order to control their life, because it's that kind of laziness and lack of participation that got their ass in the hole that they're in now. But that's not the case for most of you. Most of you are leaning on your last hope and best wisdom to perceive whether or not the people you take advice from, if your judgment's good enough to determine whether or not you believe somebody's full of shit or not, whether or not the words that come out their mouth would support the educational level, their skill or ability to be able to get that job done. And I can count on one hand how many consultants there are left that can do that. 20 years ago, there was an army. Problem is when you offer a service and it comes down to the value of money, you get greed. And if you treat people like cattle in a business, then nothing will get it done other than them making money. And half those consultants back in the early days, they weren't worth their salt at all. You had been better off taking advice from a prostitute on 3rd Street or hiring a children's party clown to be your consultant. These people didn't give a shit. They didn't want to hear your story, and they certainly didn't empathize. But the greatest part is they would have never have walked a mile in your shoes. In my early days, I spent a very, very long time on the street, nearly a decade, between my teen and early 20s. It means I understood what the shelter is. I know exactly what goes down when you're living on the sidewalk, okay? So I don't just do my job because I'm a fool. I do it because I understand it. I've already walked a mile in your shoes. You couple that with some intelligence and the ability to effectively get a job, because anybody can be a consultant, right? And then a lot of them never read a policy and procedure, but yet they're making these cute little videos with their bubbly little personalities, but yet they're giving out advice could have been written on toilet paper. You're fucking with people's lives making these videos, and you don't even know a single policy procedure. In an average year, I have to roll through thousands of manuals, hundreds of directors' reports. And every time we have an election, all these policies, procedures, and standards, data, CES, boss system, and all these manuals, I have to go through again because they're going to change those policies. Every PHA operates differently. You've got Bob's Donuts, you've got Sally's Donuts. Housing authorities only take guidance from HUD, the federal agency, and then they have their own specific policies and procedures designed for their community, for that intent and that will. So every time I deal with a housing authority, there's no one option that fixes them all. Every housing authority is a different experience. So keeping statistical data over an incredible period of time helps you better understand how that housing authority works, and actually rank housing authorities. I keep an Excel sheet on the level of depravity, how good they are, and whether or not I would consider them a walk in a park. I think we all understand what that means, right? Because if you're going to be really exceptional at your job, that means you have the ability to absolutely devastate housing authorities. It's not my job to ruin anybody or have them investigated by 3 federal agencies, but it is my job to apply. Think of this. Your enemy's on the ground, you put your shoe on their neck. I will apply pressure and see how long that housing authority is going to continue to breathe. And then there'll be that soft snap before, and you hear that snap, and that's not a literal term. But what I'm saying is, will it continue to apply enough pressure till I get what I want, and to do it without violating any laws? So, if the system worked as it should have worked from the beginning, and we put as much as we do in our war coffers, as much as we spend on potholes, as much as we spend on climate change and other things and political campaigns, if we spent that on the elderly, disabled, and the homeless and veterans, we would have solved most of the crisis. Not all of it. You can never solve homelessness all the way because some people don't want to be housed. But we would have already solved it. Even $1 trillion would have solved it at this point. People's lives and as humans, we're always going to have moments. We've all been brought to the verge a couple of times in a lifetime, unless you're just an exceptional sample of DNA. We've all had a point where we ran out of money and we were 30 minutes from homelessness. You may not have realized it at the time, but you damn near lost everything. And for most of us, we probably reached that point several times. And then we're fortunate to ride out that hard spot because of the love and care of family. There are many that don't have that. So when they're hit hard and they're down, they lose it. They lose their home. Their shit's on the sidewalk. By the next day, it's all stolen. And for their entire, and say this person's 70, they just watched their 70 years on earth evaporate, and they've come to one very clear fucking conclusion that as they stand on the sidewalk and the police drive off, that nobody gives a shit and nobody's going to help them. They'll have to walk down the street for the next 30 miles and then find somebody that would actually advise them what to do at that point. Not even a free ride to shelter. We treat people like dogs. Out of money, tough shit, not my problem. The family, where's the phone go? They snip the line and block you. Nobody wants to support it. So people that I get that call our office are damaged in so many ways. It's unbelievable. You cannot do this job unless you actually care. Because there's no way a consultant is going to take on a 90-year-old woman sleeping in her car and go to bed and sleep comfortably. Because if you like anything like me, then you'd understand that you'd be thinking about your own grandmother. It would actually grab at you and will wreck you emotionally. This job carries a lot of emotion because you hear stories of people's lives and watching it evaporate, and you can't, unless you're just heartless or a sociopath, you can't help but to relate, to feel pain or even sadness. There are times I've had to pause phone conversations just to avoid tearing up myself because I hear stories that they're just unimaginable. But that is the human experience. That's what it means to be on this earth. And so for all the things that can happen, I'm simply trying to either drag people out of hell or get them housed. And I won't be challenged on that. And so that rolls back to one very special thing. That is why I have policies, and I'm not going to have people dictate when and how I do my job. I'm not going to have a person to all of a sudden become a professional and indicate me that I'm no longer effective, that they are now the consultant and they're going to advise me. I'm not going to put up with that bullshit, okay? Not after all the years I've done. I've earned my badge. It is what it is. So, guys, I really enjoyed talking with y'all today. I'm going to get off and talk to a few clients. I have no weekends are always lovely. We have people that if I was like them, I would say, we have the weekend to think about everything we'd like to ask. And of course, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, you guys hammer me hard. Let me give you some advice. You ever get casework with our office? Call on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. Look, Mondays are a nightmare. I use them on a 16 call backlog because everybody wants to share all the thoughts they've had over the weekend, clearly. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are like a ghost town. So some good advice. Sometimes don't call what everybody else calls exactly at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Monday, because that's when everybody else does. So it's just good wisdom, right? And I'm hoping that we can make our next video. And I'm gonna deep dive. We're gonna be talking a lot about some of the sophistication of federal statutes. Now, look, it doesn't matter to me if you have an extraordinary low IQ. It makes a little difference if you have a learning disability. I've learned how to talk to clients in many capacities. And if I'm the very definition of consulting and doing that type of work, then I should also lend accommodations to people that have all kinds of issues. And I do because I sympathize. All right, guys. So, our next video, we're going to be trying to talk about accommodations for disabilities. And we're going to pair that with a little bit of portability because I want to help you better understand how to do this and weaponize it for yourself. Knowledge isn't just power. Okay. Knowledge is not necessarily power. Your ability to be knowledgeable and then weaponize that and be successful in the use of that knowledge, that's power. Okay. Anybody can have a manual without understanding how to weaponize that manual to truly understand it and apply it. That is the true weapon. Having the manual doesn't mean jack. It means you can read. And if you're smart, you can even read further into that, right? But to be able to effectively demonstrate that you can utilize what you've learned and actually win things for yourself or your clients, that is the truest form of power you'll ever see, especially when you're helping people that may not necessarily want any help or helping people that believe that fundamentally is what you're suggesting cannot be possible. Because we have so much bad media about Section 8. So many people believe that housing authorities close, that there's just only one way to do everything, but the reality is much more stark than that. The news is actually pretty good. There's many ways in which we can weaponize federal rules, policies, and procedures to get exactly what we need, despite the ever-present rules that prevent us from successfully getting vouchers, subsidies, housing, or even continuum of care programs to service those that are homeless and emergency housing vouchers. One of the easiest things on the planet to get in the shortest amount of time. Well, guys, I've enjoyed talking with you. Now I'm just rambling so we can get on. This will be our last shot of my receptionist there, one of my 22 beautifully curated cats. I remember, if y'all have been around long enough, y'all remember her when she was a kid. She used to put both paws in my hair, and then she would meticulously groom my hair. A cat will only do that if they believe that A, they care about you, 2, they consider you part of the family, and 3, they actually like you. So that's the pickle thing about cats and dogs. They'll only groom you and do that as if they believe you're part of their family. All right, guys, I've enjoyed talking with you, and I hope you have a great week. All right, bye-bye.